Hi, I'm Jyoti.
And I'm Chloe.
Self control is the key to wildlife preservation. We have the awareness, we have the self control, but all our talk about climate change, animal right means nothing without actions. We are not the victims here, we are the cause, and our planet always has to pay the price. Without self control, all our efforts on wildlife preservation don't even stand a chance.
So, in the coming years, many species of animals and plants are being extinct. For example, the Pinta giant tortoise. They are extinct because of the habitat destructions by the introduced goat. And the stellar sea cow being extinct within only 27 years after they are found just because of their tasty meat and fat. So, why would this happen? Since we all know that humans are the smartest animal in the world, why can't we control ourselves? That's why we stand here today to explore with all of you about this life threatening problem. Why self control is such a big challenge in our path to wildlife preservation.
Well, let us first understand a very basic concept of economics, the Homo economist, the so-called rational economic man. He stands alone with money in his hand, ego at his heart, nature at his feet. He dislikes work but loves luxury, and he knows the price of everything. But are we really like that? No. But studies show more economic students study about home economists, the more self-interested they become. But we are not like that. We care, we cooperate, we value nature. But learning these concepts influence our actions, and that shows how outdated these models are. Well, let us look at one of the consequences of us thinking very self-interested and being like home economists. Well, the consequences are pangolins. Do you know what a pangolin is? Most of you might not even know what a pangolin is. Well, it's the most trafficked mammal with high demands in Asia and growing demands in Africa. And uh, the scales of pangolins are powdered or made into a paste. But for ailment or arthritis or lactation. But there's no scientific basis to all these treatments. And pangolin fetuses are used to for soups to improve male virility. Again, there is no scientific basis. And pangolins help the environment uh, to eliminate termites causing um, causing negative externalities. What are negative externalities? Negative externalities are, well, uh, when a transaction creates a third party effect, a spillover effect. And here, buyers and sellers of pangolins um, get benefits, immediate benefits, but the society has delayed costs like biodiversity loss and endangered animals like the pangolins.
So, after even after understanding all of this, another question naturally comes up. If people are aware of the environmental damage, the lack of scientific evidence, and the long term consequences, why would this behavior still continue? The answer is not only in economics, but also in how our brains are wired. Human beings tend to prioritize the immediate gain over long term benefits, known as the temporal discounting. So, in simple terms, benefits that we can get today often looks and feels much more valuable than a much larger benefits in the future. So, in the example of pangolins, all the profits we gain from selling pangolin skills are immediate and tangible, while the consequences, the species extinction, the ecosystem imbalance, are abstract and distant. And at the same time, our brain are strongly influenced by the chemical dopamine. It releases when we experience rewards, whether it's money, status, or success. These rewards activate our brain's pleasure system and reinforce this behavior and making it more likely to happen again in the future. So even if someone knows that poaching pangolins could be harmful in the long run, the combination of immediate economic gains and the psychological rewards can make it really difficult to resist. So in this way, the question goes beyond rational decision making. It becomes a question about human self-control. Can we resist short-term gains in order to protect the long-term sustainability? And let's look at another story. Every year during the hunting season in Taiji, Japan, fishermen work together to locate pods of dolphins in the open ocean. Using boats and metal poles that creates loud underwater noises, they drive the dolphins into a narrow bay where all the animals are trapped in shallow water. And once confined, some dolphins are selected and sold alive to the marine park all around the world. But the remaining dolphins are killed for their meat. Over the years, thousands of dolphins from multiple species are captured and slaughtered through this practice. But for the fishermen who involved, the hunt is often seen as a long-standing tradition and a source of economic income for the community. But the fact is, the ocean is not owned by any single individual. It's a shared resource.
And let us understand what this shared resource means. In economics, we call that the tragedy of the commons. What is the tragedy of the commons? We call resources gift of nature, like ocean, grasslands, common access resources, or common pool resources. And these resources, common pool resources, are non-excludable, meaning we cannot prevent anyone from using them, but rivalrous, meaning one person's use reduces another person's use of it. And this is a simple diagram here. And here it calls a classic market failure. In dolphin hunting in Taiji, the private benefit is much larger than the social costs. Overexploitation creates social costs, creating another negative externalities. And this shows how, without a regulation or or collective self-control, we're damaging ecosystem biodiversity loss, and how we are reducing many species of dolphins.
So this idea can also connect it to something from psychology called the diffusion of responsibility. Now imagine a group of people watching one person in trouble, let's say someone who falls on the street. Often, no one helps right away because everyone thinks someone else will do it. The responsibility spreads across the group, and everyone feels less pressure to act. And this works the same way with the shared resource, like the ocean in Taiji. Each fisherman might think, if I don't catch the dolphins, someone else will, so it doesn't really matter. Since everyone shared the resource, it feels like no one is fully responsible for that. And it makes it much easier to focus only on the short-term gain and ignore the long-term harm. Understanding this helps us explain why protecting the wildlife is so difficult. People need to know that their actions actually matters even when someone else is involved. Otherwise, the temptation to just go along with the group could be too strong. Let's conclude this idea of wildlife preservation and self-control with a general example, the Nauru Island in the Pacific. And this case shows what can happen when human decisions are mainly driven by short-term gains. So in the 20th century, the Nauru Island became extremely wealthy by mining its phosphate, a valuable resource for fertilizer. For a time, this brought a huge success, but the success also came at a huge cost. 80% of the island's land was destroyed, and leaving behind a barren, uninhabitable moonscape, forcing the population onto a narrow coastal strip. After the phosphate reserves were exhausted, the country was facing severe economic struggles. And this story reminds us that even if some choices might seem to be beneficial in the short term, it could create consequences that is difficult or even impossible to reverse.
Well, to conclude, the same logic appears again and again throughout our talk that treating wildlife is and natural resources is important. I know it's tempting, all the immediate benefits, all the gains, all the money. We want that, well, of course. But the costs are delayed and they're invisible at first. But slowly and surely we'll realize all the harm we're doing to the climate and ruining biodiversity and how natural resources are scarce. We're not separate from the environment. We're part of it. And we need to understand short-term rewards are important to us, but long-term consequences are going to be very, very bad. And we need to exercise self-control. And just to conclude today with our talk, it's about whether humans can learn to think beyond short-term rewards and exercise self-control needed to protect the world we live in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.